Hello, everybody. This is the IoT Show on IoT Day from Boston. And we have an awesome guest, David. How are you, David?
I'm fine, Sudha. And I'm so glad to be part of this, because one of the things I know from title of your book, I really share this vision of how disruptive and transformational the IoT is going to be. You know, there's a lot of neat devices and things like that, but I think it goes far, far beyond that to really transform everything we're going to be doing in the future. So I think we're birds of a feather in that regard.
I'm pleasantly surprised. It's not a plug. I didn't ask David to talk about my book, but IoT is disruptive. That's what makes it exciting for me. So let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit of who you are and how you came about into IoT, and then tell us a little bit about the Boston ecosystem.
Sure. My first involvement was back in 2008 when I was doing consulting work for Vivek Kundra when he was the CTO for the District of Columbia.
So the CTO of USA?
No, this was the CTO
when he was
Columbia. This is what he did that got him that job. So he was CTO of the District of Columbia, and he threw open about 40 to 50 major real-time was the emphasis, in the city, and then held a contest.
Real-time databases. What does these databases have?
Everything from crime statistics to the one that I found incredible. There was one that actually had real-time data on roadkill in the District of Columbia. People to go out and pick them up and roast them or something. But at any rate,
but somebody took the time to go document them, enter data.
Well, the thing is, you know, this stuff had, I don't, that one I never did quite figured out why that was one of the ones they threw open. But it, you know, in the past. And one of the ones that was particularly dramatic was real-time crime data.
Yeah.
And you know, mayors particularly like to massage that kind of data to minimize the perception of how crime-ridden a particular area might be. And the Mayor Fenty, who did lose for re-election after that, I don't think that was a big factor. But at any rate, he had the guts to allow that kind of thing to get out. So at any rate, I was working for Vivek, and he and I were going to write a book after that on open data together.
Yep.
But he came to the attention of a guy who had moved to DC a couple years ago named Barack Obama, who stole I'm still angry about this. He stole my co-author and made him the first CIO of the U.S. But so I ended up writing a book called Data Dynamite.
Do you have the book? Do you have the book in front of you?
Oh, no, I don't seem to have it right here. I should have flashed it. I'm sorry about that.
The book is called Data Dynamite?
Data Dynamite. And
you can find it on Amazon?
Yep. And it, I think, is still the best cohesive argument for the wisdom of sharing data, which is a really, really critical thing. I call it one of the four essential truths of the IoT, that in the past, for the longest time, the way to prosperity, and I know you lived here in Massachusetts for a while, so that you may remember the days of the so-called Massachusetts Miracle, when we had all these microcomputer companies, none of which exist anymore.
Yes, I've had friends.
Great idea.
Dell.
Yeah, priority. They had proprietary operating system, so that their customers were totally dependent on them. And then, you know, open systems came along, and bingo, they were all dead. And so, at any rate, I in researching that book, I came across some of the early examples of the IoT. In fact, when I was going back and looking at my files, I realized I'd written a piece for Mass High Tech in 2003 about what at that point was being called ubiquitous computing.
Yes, I was there then.
Yep, some of the early examples of the IoT back then. And
in fact, David, I had actually seen the very first IoT, not thinking it's IoT, the very first wearable, I've seen it out of MIT. I used to host the BCS web group, the Boston Computer Society web group, in Sloan School. And I remember seeing this guy wear this, the blinking lights and stuff out of his outfit. And the word wearable was used, but I think I had to grow up to smarten up to get to so many years to appreciate it,
Exactly. So anyway, I came across this, did write a little bit about it in the book, but mainly came back to it after I was done with that, and was absolutely blown away by the potential for the IoT. And an awful lot of it is, contrary to common opinion, is actually happening right here in Boston. There was a recent
contrary opinion, as in, everything is not happening in Silicon Valley, it is happening in Boston.
Right.
You should tell that to the world. This is going to a global audience, so they should know America is bigger than Silicon Valley.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I think, and when it comes to the smart city component of this, that and in many other ways, that Barcelona is actually one of the real world leaders. So yes,
I have visited Barcelona just to check that out. And I took pictures of their waste bin driving around because they are supposed to be smart,
Exactly. And so Boston, there was a recent ranking of the leading IoT cities worldwide in terms of number of companies in IoT that were headquartered there. And we actually came in 4th. And since that came out, we've added another IoT company. This is something of a quiz for you. Do you happen to know?
Very subtle, very subtle.
You happen to know what the only company from the original Dow Jones average that still exists, much less is doing pretty well? That happens to be our new little company that's moved here. It's called General Electric, I think it's called. And we are so excited about having them here. As far as I'm concerned, I do what Google considers to be the leading non-corporate blog in the world on the IoT, and every so often I have to put a disclaimer in there because here comes my cat to chime in on things. I don't know of any good smart cat devices, but at any rate, I have to put in a tongue-in-cheek disclaimer that I'm actually not on the GE payroll because I say so many glowing things about them. But I honestly do think that of all the major companies in the world, GE is the one that has made the IoT transformation more successfully than any others. And that's because it's not just the technology they're applying, but what I call IoT thinking. So for example, they have radically transformed their product development process. It's now very cyclical because they can get real-time data from all of the sensors that they implant on all the devices that answer that question that nobody quite figured out in the past of what the heck happens once our products leave the factory floor. Nobody knew because there was no way of monitoring. And now, with the all the GE jet turbines with 50 or 60 sensors on those, and the locomotives and their medical devices, this whole amazing array of things they do, they are actually able to get products out the door in the first place in 6 to 9 months, where it used to take them 3 years. And they're able to come out with new iterations and upgrades much more rapidly because they're constantly feeding data in. And the most, I think, exciting thing that they're doing right now is this whole concept of the digital twin, where you'll have in the factory a digital sort of a wireframe model of a product as it exists out in the world. And they will plug in the real-time data so they can see how things are working or not working. And so at any rate, it's so exciting to have them coming here. And another reason why we're very excited is that they have a proven record of partnering with small startups, Quirky, which I guess now is bankrupt, and Electric Imp. They did a contest a couple years ago.
Yeah.
IoT-based home products, things like that. They also did that amazing contest a year or two ago where they invited anybody in the world with a 3D printer to design a new turbine mount for them. And you can imagine what high stakes that would be. People really seem to get upset when they're, sitting at the dining room table and a jet engine, plops down through the roof and lands on the table. So
I would be shocked.
You want to make sure that if you're doing a mount for a jet engine, that it's going to stay on the plane, not let go in mid-flight. So, the fact that they do that kind of thing is also really, really encouraging, because we think it's going to mean that they're going to be the kind of company that, despite their incredible size, will reach out and partner with with startups in this area. And that's a really exciting aspect of it. Now, I should mention that our meetup, our Greater Boston IoT meetup, has grown from one member, me, in 2013, I guess it was I started, to 2,100 members. And we had a snowstorm in Boston last night, and people still braved the storm to come out and hear some incredible presentations about edge computing. And the reason why I started was that I kept running into all sorts of people around Greater Boston who were doing great work in the IoT, but they weren't talking to each other. And I've always felt that one of the signature aspects of the IoT is collaboration. And there's no better example of that than if, for example, if this, then that, and where all sorts of companies that are competing in the marketplace will voluntarily share their APIs with IFT, and you come up with these really cool, as they call them, recipes that will control multiple devices with a single command. And the great thing about that is it's sort of another proof of Metcalfe's concept of network effects, that the more devices you have out there, and in this case, the more that have open systems that can be shared, the more valuable each one of them becomes. And that's an amazing transformation, I think.
So this is fantastic. So I love your passion for Boston. I have a bias since I have lived there so long. I love the place.
Yeah.
So you're telling me I heard a different version of GE, better than anybody in GE could actually describe that they have the IoT thinking. I would love for you to, get me somebody from GE to show me proof of their IoT thinking and what is happening. And, I know about Predix and some other technology that they have, but that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Other than that, since you run the meetups, or you're the founder of the IoT meetup in Boston, you're talking about the ecosystem beyond GE itself, right? Can you tell me a little bit about the ecosystem? What is unique? So one thing I heard, I was at this conference on IoT data conference, and I heard the CIO of Palo Alto talking about Boston. And he was talking about, there was something in, what was it? Fire hydrants. I think they had this kind of citizen movement to get fire hydrants become IoT, so that, they are maintained. And then it turned out that there was a snowstorm, and that kind of blocked the hydrants, and they kind of caught that in data. So that was the context of his story, how that he mentioned that. And I was thinking, that's a fantastic story. So is there a citizen moment? Is there, you know, an entrepreneurial moment? And, you know, tell me a little bit about the grassroots
Sure.
startup
Well,
ecosystem beyond.
one of my favorite examples is Big Belly. They are located in Needham, Mass.
Yeah.
And they, one of the things that I think is so neat about it is that you can't think of anything more basic and dumb and forlorn than a traditional municipal trash can. You know, they're these simple things. They're usually dented. They're often lying on their side. The trash is usually coming out of it, and they are a mess. And they just don't do their job very well. So in the first iteration of the Big Belly, they came up with something that, you know, if they just stopped there, it would have been incredible. They came up with these great new devices where they have photovoltaics in the top that power a compactor, so that each one of those trash cans can accommodate 5 times the quantity that a traditional one does, and stuff doesn't fall out. They're you know, got beautiful paint jobs. They're very attractive, and they're coupled with one side by side that also is used for collecting recyclables. And it's really hard to do that in most places because it, you know, they just don't have recycling containers on the street. And that's a real passion of mine because I happen to have written the law that requires labeling of plastic containers sold in Massachusetts to have the little chasing arrows on there to encourage their recycling. So,
what do you mean by written the law?
I happen to live in the only state in the nation, only one, that has a tradition going back to colonial times where you and I can file legislation. Only state that allows individuals to do that. So in 1988, I filed a bill that would require labeling of the containers. I lobbied for it, testified for the thing, and eventually it was signed by the governor and became law. So one of my proudest accomplishments. I'm really very proud of having done that. So anyway, that's a big issue for me.
This is amazing because I just saw, I think it's in America Reframed. There was this thing about this lady in Concord who basically said, you know, plastic bottles should be banned, and there was, you know, community opinion about it, and she was lobbying for it. So I never saw anybody who actually successfully started something like this, which was very basic and good for the environment. Unbelievable. I think I could have a whole day conversation with you. We should do like a 24-hour live show with you, David.
So let me just finish up quickly about Big Belly. You know, if they just stuck with what they did originally, that would have been a huge accomplishment, but they didn't stop there. They made these devices smart. They put in telecom systems where they will now communicate with the DPW so that instead of basing the pickups on historical practice that may or may not be relevant this week, because, you know, the amount in the trash can may have varied, then instead of that, they send data back to the DPW so that they know the real-time status of the trash cans, and they can now schedule the pickups based on the actual real-time status of the trash can. And that's not all. There's the same system can be used to form a mesh network. You know, a mesh network is self-forming, self-correcting, self-healing. And in the case of an emergency, whether it's a terrorist attack or a natural disaster or whatever, the antennas on those individual Big Belly systems can actually form a Wi-Fi network that can be used.
God.
Isn't that incredible? And that brings up another one of what I call my essential truths that we have to start asking with the IoT. Who else can use this data? And it's sort of, again, part of this deal of this shift from the proprietary information to instead, it becomes more and more valuable as more people share it. And they can share it in a whole range of different ways. And it's really exciting to have that kind of thing now. And it really does require a whole new mindset as far as I'm concerned. And one of the things I'm doing a lot of writing about right now is that I think the change can even extend to corporate organization. You know, in the past, it was so hard to gather data and equally hard to distribute it that our traditional hierarchical and linear processes made sense. You know, it was really hard to do this stuff, so what the heck, you might as well have senior managers in control of everything and parceling out the information as they see fit to whoever they think could benefit from it. Well, guess what? Now, and I think this is the single most profound thing about the IoT. For the first time ever, everyone who needs real-time data in order to be able to do their job and or make better decisions can, very important word, share that data on a real-time basis. It's not that just that, you know, it'd be good enough that they would have it themselves, but they can also share that. And when you think about it, so many different things within an organization, whether it's a government or a corporation, involve multiple departments who in the past always looked at things in terms of information silos and doing things sequentially. And when you have them able to share this data simultaneously for the first time, it really changes everything. So why shouldn't your manufacturing people share it with their supply chain partners? Why shouldn't they share it with the distribution network? And even in a growing number of cases with the customers themselves. And so instead of these hierarchical and linear processes, you can have cyclical ones that are constantly repeating themselves, and where data is fed back on a real-time basis. Lots of times it'll be on an M-to-M basis where you'll have machinery that will adjust other machinery's operations based on the real-time data to make it work more efficiently. And I'm particularly aware of this because since we're a coastal city, you know, there's this brand new report that came out from UMass about a week or two ago that the water level may go up 6 feet by 2100, 6 feet, which would wipe out the city of Boston, absolutely wipe it out. And so we've got to do things in a more efficient way so that we reduce environmental impacts and waste. And I think that the IoT really can be the secret to allow that to happen.
And the 2,100 people who are, you know, coming to your IoT meetup in Boston in the middle of a snowstorm are the ones with the know-how and the knowledge to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fantastic. I think I should talk to you again when you should come back to our regular show.
I would be glad to do that.
To cover different geos. And you brought the excitement about Boston, and you brought this excitement about, you know, open data and sharing data. So thank you so much for that. And with that, thank you so much, David. And I'm going to close out for today.
Great. Happy IoT Day.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.